So let's go ahead and get started looking at the first of these. This was a heads-up match versus a guy named Bao. I'd never heard of him before, but he was actually a pretty good player and a really classy guy as well. We played together for, it was a really long session. It was like 4 or 5 hours, I think, and kind of a lot of back and forth. I took an early lead, and then he got up pretty well on me. I mean, he was up like 8 buy-ins or something, and obviously he ran good a little bit to get there, but he was playing very well as well. And then I started running good, as you'll see. I think you'll see two different hands that I played against him where I won big pots. Obviously, both the cases where luck was somewhat more on my side, and I ended up pulling up to a very slight lead, basically just break even against them. I was up like $300, which in a 5-10 game played over multiple tables over multiple hours is virtually nothing. So I think we were pretty evenly matched, but it was a very swingy match, and he was not the least bit. A lot of people, if you take a lot of money off of them, especially if a guy who's up $8,000 and ends up breaking even or being slightly down against you, a lot of people will get pissed off and nasty and that sort of thing about it. And he was a classic guy all the way to the end. So it's a rare thing to find someone who's both a good player and also not a total douchebag, which Bawa proved himself to be. Anyway, so this hand here, you see I raise on the button with jacks. He calls with ace-6 suited out of the big blind. As deep as we are, I kind of like three betting a lot with my suited aces. I think in a 300 when the effective stacks are 300 big blinds deep, like they are here, you really need to change the hands that you're three betting with, especially in a heads up match where so much of the time, I mean, you can't just only three bet monster hands in a heads up match. And the problem with three betting hands that are not monsters is that, especially here, we're 300 big blinds deep. I'm going to be calling quite a lot of his three bets. Even if his three bet, like if I open to 30, even if he makes it like $120, I'm still in pretty good shape to call those three bets just because I have position, and with the stacks as deep as they are, I'm really going to be able to put a lot of pressure on him post flop. So it's hard for him to play out of position in three bet pots. But at the same time, he doesn't want to just never three bet. He does still want to be able to three bet when he has big hands and three bet sometimes just to stop me from raising every time on the button. So he wants to be three betting, and he needs the three bet hands that he can play well out of position. And the deeper and deeper you get, the more important it becomes to play hands that can make the nuts. And even in a three bet pot, there's going to be a ton of money left to play flop, turn, and river. So you really want a hand that you want to play pre-flop cards that can make really strong hands, which I think suited aces are a great example of that, where you can flop a really strong draw with them. Sometimes you can flop a top pair that's going to be good, but mostly if he happens to flop a nut flush draw on a three bet pot, he can play it really aggressively, and he'll even have the potential to make the nuts, which you rarely will do with a hand like ace king or ace queen. So when we're 300 big blinds deep, I'd rather three bet ace-6 suited than ace queen offsuit. I think it's an easier hand to play out of position when you're super deep. You can play it more aggressively, and you're going to know where you stand a lot better than you are with a hand like ace queen, where you can never be sure if your opponent flop two pair or something, and it's hard to play ace queen aggressively if you don't have any pair. Whereas ace-6 suited, when you have the nut flush draw, you can still play it pretty aggressively. So I would prefer to three bet the ace-6 suited there. Obviously, you don't want to do it 100% of the time, but I think that's probably the slightly better way of playing his hand pre-flop. Although I think calling is fine.